My name is Keith Beatty. Kind of music I play, I like to call it soul music, R&B soul, but more on the soul side. You can find me at keithbeattymusic.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Keith_Beatty, or Facebook, Keith Beatty. Fairly simple.
I tell you time and time again that we're more than friends. Why would I lie? And everything that we've been through is to better me and you, not to make you cry.
So what made me fall in love with music came into my life early, like super early, probably 2 or 3 years old. My dad was always singing. He was always just singing around the house. I can always remember there was like a radio on with music playing. One of the first movies that I saw was The Wiz. It was just such an event because there was all these talented actors and actresses that were singing and dancing, and that kind of blew my mind. So with that said, like after my parents separated when I was young, probably like 5, 6 years old. And so I would see my dad on the weekends, but then my mom married a preacher, right? Which totally changed the world for us because we had never gone to church or anything like that. But once my mom married this preacher guy, it was church all the time. And then that's where I was introduced into a choir. And so we all had to be in the choir and actually had to play music and sing. And so I couldn't play an instrument. I could play the bongos. That was kind of cool, but when it came to like being in the choir, I had to sing. That was natural because I had been doing it. Like I said, my dad was always singing. So when he would have his little parties with his friends, he'd be like, Keith, come on out here and sing, dance. And I would do that in front of, his crowd of friends. So I fell in love with music early. The music was always on. Always.
Did I make a mistake when I told you I love you? Did I tell a lie? 'Cause I watched you cry.
I went to Indiana University and I studied education, but I really wanted to study music, but I had no theory background and I wasn't like a guy that was reading sheet music and stuff like that. So all my friends were musicians, right? And so I grew up with this guy named Lawrence Brownlee, who's a top tenor right now in the opera game. My best friend Quincy, he was an opera singer. I never knew about opera or anything. Thought opera was a joke until I started hanging with these guys, and I was like, oh my gosh. This is such an art form. So went to school with these guys, a group of guys called Straight No Chaser. Those guys were like, those are my guys. And all this music was pouring into me and I could sing too. So I was around them singing. And then after I graduated, I was like, man, I'm gonna go to New York and try the singing thing. And I went there and I had like CDs that I was performing to. It was really tough because you go to a place like that, everybody has an instrument. Everybody is doing something or they have a band. And I remember performing, to a DJ mixing my stuff. And then afterwards I went to a party and I was talking to a group of guys and they were musicians. And they were like, look, man, you have to understand that everybody in the world comes in this place. And I remember this conversation. He said, you're coming into a place where #1 musicians and top performers in the world are coming here. What do you offer? He was like, if I were you, he was like, go make it home. He's like, go learn something and do it home and then come back. And so I came home. I got a guitar for Christmas, and it sat for 6 months because I didn't know how to play it. And then I thought, hey, I better do something with this or it's going to be a nice decorative just sitting over in the corner. And so I started taking lessons, and this was probably like 7.5, 8 years ago. I started taking lessons and learning tab, and then I was like, you know what, I just need to figure this out. And so eventually I figured out how to play for myself. It took me a few years to get comfortable to actually go to like open mics and playing, right? I can specifically remember in Broad Ripple, there was a place. They were the first open mic that I decided to go to, right? And I was so nervous, man. I sat outside in the car for about 20 minutes. And I finally worked up the courage to go inside and sign up to play. And so I walked inside and went to sign my name. It's like, okay, so where do I sign up to go so I can perform for the open mic? And the guy was like, oh, that's not tonight. The reality of that situation was that in that moment, I could have walked back. You know what I mean? Walked back and said, I'm not doing this. I'm so scared that I'm not going to do this. But in that, it took some courage to go in there and do that. And then I think God was like, I got you. You don't even have to do this. I just want to see if you wanted to do it. So that's what I took away from that. I was so relieved when I got to go. I was so relieved.
Through the years, you're doing there's trouble in paradise. Do you pack your things away? Do you stay? What do you do when there's trouble?
Of course, I'm selling merch because who I am, Keith Beatty. I'm working on music. I've sat down with my family members who are this band called the Brothers Fitman, and we've recorded a song, one of my songs, and so that's coming out shortly. We just got to do a couple more mixes on it. Currently, right now, what I'm doing is trying to find other producers who kind of have that same kind of feel that I am feeling with the music, because sometimes you go into a situation and you know how the music is and it's what you feel in your soul and your heart, and then when it comes out with somebody else's spin on it, it's like, that's not it. So right now I'm just writing and trying to find a person to mesh with.
Stay, stay, stay.